3, 2, 1. Hello, hello. And we're live. Welcome, everybody, to the official November live stream here at my mixlab. Hang on, let me turn all my volumes down to make sure we don't hear an echo. We're just going to give everyone a few minutes to gather around. My name is Reed Stefan, realest puppet in the game. And since today is the November live stream, that means today is also when we announce all of our big Black Friday sales. So we're super excited here at my mixlab for the annual Black Friday sale, which means all annual subscriptions at my mixlab are 55% off. Normally they're $150. If you get them during Black Friday month, which is the entire month of November, only $69.99 for an entire year of my mixlab. So that's first off. Obviously, this is the November live stream. So welcome, everybody, if you're just joining in. We're going to be bringing Luke on in just a couple minutes to answer some of your mixing and mastering questions. So be sure to fill up the chat section here in YouTube with everything that you would like us to answer in this month's live stream. And always a big greetings from Las Vegas. We love seeing our subscribers from around the world. Someone said, Luca, make it simple, please. We'll be sure to ask all of the beginner-friendly questions. Don't worry. Hello, hello. Big ups to all you guys for joining us here on our first monthly live stream. I know we've gotten a lot of new YouTube subscribers since we dropped our gain staging video, and we actually have another YouTube upload coming this week as well. So stay tuned for that too. And for everybody who's just joining us, we announced the Black Friday sale at my mixlab. Just started, 55% off of everything. 55% off of all of the individual courses and the yearly subscriptions. That means for only $69.99, you could get an entire year of my mixlab. Very exciting stuff. We're out here posting a new course every single Monday for your mixing and mastering learning experience. Boom. Wow, welcome everybody. It's so great to see all of our subscribers here. We really love spending time face to face with you guys. This is what my favorite part about live streams are. And Lucas could be joining us in about 3 minutes, and we're just going to let a few more questions roll in. Say hello to Russia. Greetings to Russia from Las Vegas. Hey, we're happy to have you guys in here. Let's see. Someone asked, how would you use the K system for EDM mixing and mastering? I'm not sure what the K system is. If you can elaborate on that, I might be able to help you answer that, though. I see some good questions about perceived loudness. We're definitely going to be getting into that later. Someone says, subscribers since day 2. Appreciate the content. Amazing. Yeah, we've been open for a little over a year now. This is a brand new mixing and mastering school. Luca Pretolesi and I have been hard at work pumping out videos so that you can have something new to learn every single Monday. And for this week, we're doing a live stream Q&A with all you guys. And Luke is going to be joining us in just about 2 minutes. Let a few more questions roll in. Toronto's in the house. Sweden is in the house. This is great. Are there any good plugins for mixing and mastering? That's an easy question to answer. Of course there are. We're going to be getting into that later as well. I know I have my favorites. Luca definitely has his favorites as well. And in addition to the hot Black Friday deals at my mixlab, we're going to be talking about all the other plugin companies that are offering great deals and just ways to help you get started on your music production journey this holiday season. Oh, greetings from Argentina. Wow. Ecuador? Wow. Everybody's in here. This is so much fun. Well, thankfully, universal language is music. So we're all going to be talking the same language today, and that's mixing and mastering. Amazing. And for everybody who just joined one last time, Black Friday sale is here at mymixlab.com. Every video, 55% off. If you're not a subscriber, you can purchase courses individually. And the entire 1-year subscription is 55% off as well. So that's only $69.99 for an entire year of videos at my mixlab. So definitely check that out because the holiday season is here and it's the best time to get the best deals on the best place to learn mixing and mastering. Greetings from Peru. Someone said, if I had you guys 10 years ago, I would be a millionaire. That's true. If we were doing this 10 years ago, we would all be millionaires too. But we just started 1 year ago, and we were already doing great. We have a whole bunch of students from all around the world, as you could see here in the comments. It's very exciting to be an official mixing and mastering school. Obviously, Luca's been teaching for a long time. I've been teaching for a long time, but it was never really official, like a place that you could go. So now it is. So welcome to my mixlab, everybody. And let's see. Oh, it's time to bring Luca on. So I see we have a whole lot of questions piled up here in the chat. Let me switch my OBS over real quick. Hang on. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing the master of mastering, Luca Pretolesi. Hey.
What's going on? Yeah.
Greetings.
Good
Luca,
to see you, Reed.
How have you been since we last talked to you?
Well, here, just a lot of work, which is, I can't complain. Good stuff. Also, at Studio DMI, we are actually busy on the renovation of one of our rooms, Studio D, converting in an Atmos room. And then been mixing a lot. And mastering. So it's interesting because after COVID, I feel like the touring DJs, everyone just like, okay, I collect so much music. Now it's time to go on the road and just play all those hits. So now the season is ending, and then people that get ready for the winter. So I feel it's a great time now to just work on new material, new music.
Absolutely. And not too long ago, the Electric Daisy Carnival happened in Las Vegas. I know I was there listening to all the new music. Were you there, Luca, or were you busy with your renovations and projects?
No. I had a guest at the studio. A lot of our clients, they're playing at DC every year, so they're coming by. This year, I spent time with Italian artists that I like to. Well, we are in touch through the year, and then when ADC is happening, we like to hang out. So Medusa came to the studio too, and other guys. And I feel the music scene is really healthy. I feel there's like quality music out there. There's a lot of variation of style. There's not a specific style that it's leading the dance scene. Just like there's so many options. So it's a good time for music.
That's
good time actually to learn mixing and mastering as well, to maximize the quality of your own production.
I was about to say, for all the people whose careers had troubles during the pandemic, I would say there's about 20 people who started a career during the pandemic. Like the people who are new to the scene are outnumbering the people who are old to the scene, especially this year, like 10 to 1, which is really exciting because the tools and the industry and everything has really come in this direction where the bar to entry is as low as possible. And I think that pushes creativity as high as possible. And when you walk around all those different stages at a festival like that, and you're hearing all those different styles of music just within electronic music by itself, it's hard to disagree that the scene is alive and well, if not bigger than ever.
Really is. And I think I'm a mymixlab. We do our own contribution to try to make very affordable, educational, and actually share what's going on the real life of, dance music and production in general and mixing. And so I think I want to feel that we are doing our contribution, to help the scene growing.
Absolutely. And earlier you were talking about upgrading to surround sound. That's something that I've heard a lot of curiosity about. Describe the process of mixing a song in surround sound. I'm so used to there just being two speakers, or maybe you're checking your mix in mono, but what exactly is the purpose? What do you get added to the experience with all those speakers?
Well, the biggest difference of Dolby Atmos versus any type of Dolby in the past, 5.1 or anything was more dedicated for movies, gaming. Dolby Atmos for music is really big, as a big support from Apple, from Sony, from major labels. The reason why is because with binaural system, with headphones, you can actually enjoy Dolby Atmos, not good as the speakers, but very, very close. Now, what is the interesting fact about Dolby Atmos? First of all, it's a system that can grow with you. So if you place 7 plus 2 plus 4 subs, and then over time you're adding speakers, you're simply adding dots on the space. So when a song has been mixed on Dolby Atmos, it's a matter of how many speakers you have versus the 5.1 was limited to 5.1. So Dolby Atmos, you can go up to 64 speakers, I think, or even more. So the system can grow. There is a clear support from Apple, from earbuds to Logic, that now Logic is native. You can do mixes on Atmos on Logic. Wow. It's crazy. I mean, before it was just Avid with very expensive interface with the Matrix, with a lot of interfaces. With now you have essentially inside of your DAW. So it's a new wave. It's something will take a little bit of time, but for us working with a lot of major labels, they want to make sure that when we deliver a stereo mix and is approved, they want to have the Dolby Atmos mix right after. And I feel especially for kind of like put gamers and people that enjoy visual and people enjoy music in one space. I think Dolby Atmos might be able to do it. We'll see in a couple of years, but there's a lot of potential.
It's really interesting to wrap your head around. And from a technical standpoint, when you're mixing in this surround sound format, there's not really a master sum, if I'm correct.
No. That's the interesting fact, right?
It's all different. Every speaker is like its own output.
Yeah. So you can do essentially beds of objects. So you can do a space where you're placing, let's say, all your drums, and then that space is the 3 front speakers and the 2 on top, let's say. And then you have objects where you can be specific and say, I'm going to place this little white noise or this crash on the top speaker on the right corner. And then you can make that. You can also automate and sweep around that. Wow. The mindset difference is you can't use limiting as a summing concept that you're grabbing your entire mix to a limiter. Essentially, you have a lot of headroom. The -18 LUFS, it's a must on Atmos. It has to be 48K, it's -18 LUFS. And then you have everything that's the freedom, which might be a little bit weird at the beginning because a house track, a hip hop track, there's a certain sound when it glued together, it's over. It doesn't. And also the loudness war, it's absolutely over on Dolby Atmos. So, but I feel the stereo mix and master will never die. It's the master. Then the other one is the representation of your master in a different space. But even us, we always start from the stereo master, and that's to be approved. That's the song. And from that point on, there's other versions.
That's great to know. And now let's shift into more things that people could do with 2 speakers.
I
asked you, but I'm just so interested to hear about how the surround sound and Atmos. Anyways, to you, how much mixing should be done while you're producing? I have an answer for this as well, but I'll let you go first.
For me, it's a mindset. So you're producing, you're making mixing action that are like close to your production. You improve your production to get excited, to be quicker, to have a sense of the track is actually growing with you, and some mixing opportunity there. They should be done as borderline sound design mixing now. Leave a little bit of headroom and space to do additional mixing later. But I think we are in the new generation where there is not a clear moment. Now I'm making music. Now I'm mixing my music. Now I'm producing my song. Now I go with a mixing mindset and I do additional mixing. That's the way I see it.
I agree with you where you say the delineation between them is more of an old school mentality where a band would come into a studio and they would be there for a recording session with a recording engineer. And then those recordings would get brought to a mixing expert who would then run those recordings through all their different gear. So in today's modern approach, I have a very similar mentality where am I doing sound design, and is this sound design improving the arrangement of the song? Like, is the way I'm automating this knob on this plugin
Right.
making my buildup feel more like a buildup? So those are the type of mixing
Yeah.
things that I do. Once I'm done compiling and arranging and I've listened to the song a bunch of times, it already sounds pretty good. But then I take the extra step to go back and say, okay, let me close all these groups. And instead of
Right.
looking at 100 different channels, let's just look at 5 different groups: bass, kick, drums, synths,
Yeah.
vocals. Maybe another one for the effects too, if there's a lot of effects. And
Right.
that's when I really feel like I'm mixing, when I'm taking those separate groups and balancing them and saying, okay, do I want to maybe do some side chain in here to help the kick cut through all these other groups? That's more mixing. But producing for me is all sound design, and there's no limit. Like, I don't stop myself. There's never a point where I'm saying, oh, I'm mixing too much, I should go back to producing.
No.
If
No.
it's making the sound move forward and the idea move forward, it's a good thing.
Yeah.
So there really isn't 2 separate steps in today's workflow. However, there is a benefit to thinking of your song in groups,
Yeah.
like a mixing engineer would. So that's long answer to a short question, but I
No,
think that'll
but
help
it's
a lot of
important.
people.
One actually, if I can describe one mistake or something that I see with a lot of mixes coming to us for mastering, it's a lot of people, they tends to commit a mistake too soon, early stage of mixing. And then when they get to the end, they ask us to fix that mistake.
Right.
So mymixlab, for example, I want to think that might help to do that, to avoid those mistakes early stage of mixing. Instead of do mastering where you kind of elevate the quality, you need to do mastering of fixing things first. So more you maximize the quality of your mix, and exponential, it's going to be the mastering result.
Here's another question about working with groups. Do you have a specific workflow for mixing your drums group?
I do. First, I do quick leveling, of course, or make sure that I'm not using an EQ, for example, on the hats, simply because the hats are too low. So EQ curve in a open sound and a piano on a string, it gives us more options. If you go on the 808 hats, maybe just have to 808 hats 3 dB louder, you avoid to use an EQ, a shelf on the top hats. So something to think about it. So for me, it's like first leveling, make sure the level is right. Now I go so what I try to achieve from these drums, I want to kind of glue all together. I want to separate all the drums and have a lot of details in the transient. If I go for glue, I might compress my drums and then do individual mixing of each stems into a compressor, an SSL G, for example. But if I go for separation, let's say like future bass track, I want a lot of nice little details, then I don't glue, I don't compress my drum bass, and I do like maybe transient enhancement on the individual sounds.
Absolutely. Transients are always a must for me. I'd say that's my go-to. I always make sure I enhance the transients a little bit because I know for sure down the chain in the master, somewhere there's going to be clippers, there's going to be limiters, and those are
shave a little bit.
Right, and those are like anti-transient plugins. So you want those for other reasons, but you have to understand the nature of limiters and clippers and use transient designers to kind of offset what you're going to be doing to it later. So if you're going to do one and only thing, I would say just a little transient boost on your drums group. Like if you're a beginner and you're not really sure how to make fine adjustments, or maybe it seems a little daunting to you, a really safe bet is just boost the transients on your drums group. I also like to make sure that my drums are right on the edge of being in the red, if not a little bit in the red. You'll find that the red doesn't make your audio sound bad until you're significantly in the red. I always find that to be like my target point where I want my drums group to hit the loudest out of all of my groups, next being the vocals. So yeah, that's a great process, either if you want to try something more advanced or something more simple on your drums group. Someone's asking, why does my DAW bounce out noise even after I'm gain staging? This could connect a little bit to what I was just talking about, where I like things a little bit in the red. You might be too far in the red. By the time all your groups get down into your master chain, it might be blasting, and that could be your number one issue. So make sure you're not reaching the red going in. Luca, do you have any other tips for reducing noise in your masters?
Yeah, so be careful with the older waves. You have kind of the analog setup. It was simply like some noise, so be careful with that. Second, if you use Acoustica plugin or any other plugin, there are no linear plugins, so they create harmonics, second and third harmonics. If you get into the plugin too loud, you might generate unwanted noise happening from saturation. So usually, I do have a kind of like a level of gain staging. To me is the -18 full scale, equal to 0 dBVU. If I keep retaining all my level always to 0 dBVU, again, equal to -18 full scale, this also means that I can create presets on compression. And every time I run a new session, I don't have surprises. I know exactly the compressor will work always in the same way, because the level of the stems that is going to be the same way, even if it's a new song. So I recommend to be very consistent on the level of your starting point of the mix. If you look, the summing of your entire mix will keep you on 0 dBVU. You are in a good place, I think.
Speaking of summing, this is another question that I was really curious about. As someone who mixes everything in the box, is there some immediate advantage to using a summing mixer to group all your stems together? Or is it like any other tool where it has a bit of a learning curve and you have to really figure out how to use it?
Right. I think I'm using multiple summing devices here at the studio for different purposes. But I think that there is an expectation. Almost people say, oh, if I mix through a summing, I'm going to have the magic of a console. It's not really that. What you're getting a little bit of crosstalk, which is something technically not good, but it's actually musical, so it's fine. So crosstalk, what it is, you have sound coming one channel, bleeding a little bit in other channels. They give a sense of like openness. And a big SSL console from the past, they have a lot of crosstalk, but it was actually a nice sound, not characteristic. Two, you're getting a little bit of analog saturation, which make things a little bit more live, more open, more organic. So it's nice. Now, not every summing device sounds the same. I have multiple, and like the Dangerous 2 Bus Plus has more like a thicker tone, a little bit shaving, a little bit of transient, but in a nice way. I have a Maslach summing that essentially is an amplifier, sounds the same. One thing I want you to kind of think about it, the summing is an opportunity to insert gear on individual groups. So when you go into 16 channel summing and you feel you want to have your kind of magic analog on the vocal setup, that's an opportunity, because your summing of the vocal can go into let's say a compressor, an EQ, and then into summing. So it's an opportunity to insert gear. Now, for people like myself here at the studio, we have a system in place. So using analog gear, it's fine. We take photos, recall. But if you are a producer and you're constantly, the goal is to make more songs, more music, you might want to consider to work in the box, maybe use quality plugin on the busing system that have a little bit harmonics and saturation, and then eventually send it out to people like myself, for the final touch.
Absolutely. That's pretty much my workflow too. As a producer, I master everything myself. I have a couple different master chains that I choose from depending on which genre I'm mastering. And then when I know for sure the song is going to get released, I literally send an email to Luca and say, hey, this song is coming out soon. And
get it done.
Yeah. We love the way it sounds now. We know you can send it back sounding even better. Let's do it. So right. That's a great suggestion for music producers. And if you're trying to be an engineer, where you take clients' songs all day, yes, maybe collect gear, learn how to take snapshots, learn how to recall those sessions.
Yeah.
It might benefit your workflow, but as a producer, writing songs, a songwriter yourself, or a DJ, it's going to slow down your workflow so much that it's not get like the ratio of reward to confusion is not going to balance out to being a helpful thing in the end. So staying in the box is a very professional thing to do. You don't have to be through gear to be professional.
Right.
Let's see. Another great question I said is, do you have a target loudness for delivering your master to streaming?
Things that I think we talked about this in the past videos. Things are changing, and then I'm not worried anymore the way I was maybe 3 years ago, as far as like the recommendation of you must stay, you know, -18 LUFS. No, I will say stay in a fairly dynamic space where you feel comfortable that the song on streaming is not changing the intention that you had on your, let's say, your club test mix. So usually for me, it's as long as I don't have bad clipping distortion that create a lot of like phasing, aliasing, or things that really bothers me, I'm really not worried. I'm more worried about give extremely low on LUFS numbers master on Spotify, that maybe 3 years from now, who knows, 4 years from now, we're gonna have a new level, and then now we're gonna have 2-3 years of quiet music. So I want to say on a fairly low level and high level, so a good ratio. So just to give you an idea, I would say if you say -9, -10 on a pop track, you're fine. If it's on purpose, you're pushing super hard the tech house track, that makes sense for you to get really super loud.
Dubstep music.
Yeah.
All those genres. Yeah. They all take really loud LUFS measurements, and that's okay.
Right. That's not a problem. Again, well, YouTube already, it just, now you can just literally, I can bring a master that's been approved and we play on clubs that it's like very, very loud, put on YouTube without any issues. So
yeah, I've never really had issues with a mix being delivered too loud. It's usually when it's too squashed. And there's a difference between being loud and being squashed that a lot of beginners don't understand. And you could tell just by looking at the waveform whether or not it looks like a rectangle, whether it's a good indicator that it's going to suffer under that second layer of limiting that the streaming services do. Think of that -14 LUFS playback rule as another limiter that your song goes through before it gets played back. So you want to make sure that your master has as much dynamics as possible to compensate for what that limiter is going to do. Similar to what we just talked about with the drums group, boost the transients to make up for the master chain. So master extra dynamic to make up for the streaming service.
Exactly.
Let's see, Pro Tools or Studio One? I think I know your answer.
You know the answer, right? Yeah. I'm a Studio One user for the past like 4 years, and before I was in Logic. I do like Pro Tools. I just, for my workflow and just like I choose to drive a different car. That's exactly what it is. You know, nothing wrong with Pro Tools or better on Studio One. It just like feels better for me. That's all.
Yep. And in my case, all the projects that I work on end up being vocal sessions with Kara. And Kara knows and loves Pro Tools. I use Ableton and Pro Tools, but Kara specifically uses Pro Tools because it doesn't have so many features and bells and whistles. The lack of confusion and the lack of menus everywhere streamlines the process, makes it more simple. It forces you to focus on just recording something that sounds great instead of where in Ableton you could record any old squeak into a microphone and OTT it into an EDM lead. But in Pro Tools, you don't have all those extreme sound shaping tools. It's really about capturing the source. So there's beauty in the simplicity too, but I understand a lot of producers would look at the features list and be like, why would you want to use Pro Tools? But there's beauty in the simplicity. So that's my reason for enjoying Pro Tools and for enjoying Studio One and Ableton for all those advanced workflow features, routing things easily through outboard gear, producing easily, turning things into MIDI, vice versa. It's just things that you could never do in Pro Tools.
Right.
Let's see. When you use FabFilter Pro C on the master, do you have a go-to preset?
Well, if you follow a little bit my videos on my mymixlab or anywhere, you know that I do have my techniques to treat my stereo bus, which is mid-range compression, to the point that we build an hardware compressor inspired by the point of having a Pro C to compress the mid range alone. So I try to really give an answer in a minute. Instead of using multi-band compression on the stereo bus, that I'm literally cutting the frequency spectrum in different parts, and I have crossover point, I like to do an EQ on the detector. So the compressor is listening more on the mid-range and less on the top and the bottom. In this way, it's triggered by mid-range. So the mid-range will feel a little bit more in front of the mix, more control, and then the top and bottom, a little bit more loose with a little bit more dynamics. Now, in addition to that, I like to do mid-side compression on the mid-range compression, if it makes sense. So what I do, I compress 80% to 70% just the mid on the mid-range, and then I blend almost as a parallel, just on the wet, just the side. So the side is going to be uncompressed across the spectrum. The mid-range is going to be compressed on the mid. So I hope that makes sense. But I recommend, there is a couple of videos on my mymixlab when I actually dig really specific on the concept.
A great beginner's approach, if you have FabFilter Pro C and you'd like to take a try at it on your drums group, is experiment with the mix knob. If you don't understand mid-side and you don't understand the filtering techniques, we understand you might be very new and an answer like that might be confusing. Start with just the mix knob. That's the easiest place for drum compression, because that puts you into what's called parallel compression, which is a age-old approach for bringing loudness without sacrificing so much of the transients. So in my workflow, I always go for the mix knob. So that's both of our answers right there for you.
Yeah, and there is the additional question that I forgot to answer is like attack and release time. And the way I think is, if I go for leveling the mid-range, where I'm essentially, I'm not looking to pumping or like to make it as a musical, but just more control, I might do medium slow attack and medium fast release. So that way the transients come through. I'm not getting pumping. I just simply almost keep things more in the front, almost as a limiter.
In milliseconds, what would you consider fast and what would you consider medium in milliseconds?
A millisecond. Wow. Actually, let me be specific. I had the DAW open in front of me. I'm going to open Pro C. So I'm not on video because I'm not connected to the DAW today. But I want to be specific on that because I want to see that.
Sorry. When I edit this, I'll put a screenshot in just visualizing it. So
yeah.
We'll make a good
So
clip.
When I talk about medium slow, I talk about 100 millisecond on attack. And when I talk about like medium fast release, I talk about 80, around 80 millisecond. I can see it's almost like in my go-to, it's like this. So that's attack and that's the release time.
Great tip. I think that's going to be really useful to a lot of people. When you're compressing vocals, do you take the same approach as drums, or do you have a different mentality when doing vocal compression?
Yeah, vocal compression. Yeah, so there's absolutely different approach based on the content. So when I'm compressing, let's say a singer that sing very intimate, not higher octave, in front of the stage, technically, like in front of the mic, tell you the story. I'm not looking to get crazy pumping with fast attack, fast release. I'm looking to just keep kind of the concept of the mid-range. So keep everything control. So I do probably going to do like, again, medium attack and release, 3-to-1 ratio, 4-to-1 ratio, CL1B style compression, which is kind of smooth and big. If I think about a rap vocal, that might be on purpose, kind of like snappy, very, very fast attack, fast release, 1176 type of compression. So yeah, there's a different approach. There's also another one, which is group vocal mixing. Sometimes we don't have the luxury to get a dry vocal. We receive an a cappella. In that case, vocal parallel compression might help if you feel that you're not getting the vocal sit on the music loud the way you want it. But if you keep pushing on compression, you kind of destroy the transient on the vocal. So a little bit of parallel might help too.
And it also makes a big difference if you're compressing a wet acapella or a dry acapella, because once the reverbs and delays are printed in there, it's really hard to do much with your compressor without making all that stuff too loud. It really
Right.
brings up the tails of your echoes and things like that. So if you have the workflow and it's your project, make sure the compression is before all of the wet effects, unless that's like a style. I know in a lot of
Right.
dance music vocals where they want the effects really, really up in your face,
Yeah.
that's where adding the compressor afterwards would make a lot of sense. Do you have a specific vocal chain that you prefer for recording vocals? And I'm talking about a mic
Oh,
and any gear it might pass through
oh,
on the way in.
Reed. I think the puppet is specialized on that. Not me. That's
I'll
you.
I'll go through mine a little bit. Okay, my favorite is the Sony C800. Unless I'm recording somewhere with a lot of background noise, like a living room, somewhere with no acoustic treatment, then I use my Shure SM7B because that microphone sounds like a portable vocal booth. It picks up no background noise at all. Whereas the Sony is super sensitive and you
Yeah.
really have to be in a specialized room to use it correctly. But from there, I go into a Neve preamp emulation. It's like an EQ preamp built in. It does my low cut, but no actual EQ. I just low cut it. And then my Tube Tech compressor, which is my favorite all-time vocal compressor. If I'm using my mic, I'm using my Tube Tech compressor. In fact, my voice is going through it right now. I have my shotgun mic on top of my camera actually hooked up to the Tube Tech compressor. So even when I'm using my video mics, I run all those through the
Nice.
same vocal chain too. And unlike Luca, I'm not mixing with my hardware. I'm only recording with my
Recording.
hardware. Yep.
Right.
My mic passes through it on the way into the Apollo, and then I switch it off. That's it for the hardware in my workflow. So
Right.
yeah, so that I hope that answers your guys' vocal compression question. Someone said your voice is very crisp. Thank you. I appreciate the compliment.
It's always your voice. Your voice is always so clean.
I have this theory that the Tube Tech compressor can make any mic sound twice as expensive as
So
it
true.
actually is.
Yeah.
It
Exactly.
really is a secret life hack, and you don't hear the compression that it's doing. Like an
Oh,
1176,
so smooth.
you
Oh
hear
yeah.
the 1176 going. This is the opposite. You don't even hear it going.
So
You
nice. Yeah.
go and you can almost treat it like it's a raw vocal with your plugins. It doesn't come in looking like too compressed either. So if you have the
Exactly.
luxury of testing out that compressor, you're probably going to love it.
Exactly.
Let's see. Someone said, interesting how so many different mixing engineers use different approaches. That's right. We all kind of found our own paths to get to our own sound, as
Yeah.
will you. And we're just here happy to share it with you guys because this is really the show that we wish we had when we were young and we were figuring out how to do music production. So makes us very proud and happy to be able to share these things with you guys. Let's see. Someone says, on the master, do you have an RMS target? I know you were talking about LUFS, but do
Oh yeah,
you
yeah. I
have
do
RMS
RMS.
target?
Yeah. So there's a big difference now between pop music and like club tech house and progressive. I feel that in certain style we go back to gain sign dynamics that mostly like again progressive. I won't say progressive house, more like pop dance music. But then on tech house, we're going crazy. I think we're also responsible because we're involved in a couple of hits on that style where
Absolutely.
we kind of raise the level so high. So all my mind was everywhere at DC this year and same
Oh my goodness.
other stuff. So what happened also when in a certain style, one song is getting a certain success, almost feels like everybody else need to just match that level. So well on tech house we did crazy stuff like -2 RMS, -3 or sometimes even more. I would say on pop, R&B pop, on RMS like -7 might be okay. The thing is interesting is this: don't think about RMS beginning till end. You can kind of do a manipulation on RMS level just simply with automation. So if you do a VCA channel on your DAW, you're not changing nothing on individual channel, on busing. You only change what you are sending into your master. So if you do a little bit of VCA automation on your build, on your breakdowns, on your verses, and then you can squeeze more RMS level on the chorus, on the drop, but then regain some RMS level on the verses. It's a good way to keep also the listener engaged because now you give some space, some depth, and then you bring the music in the front. So that's part of my techniques to do automations on gain. One good way to do it, think about it. If you have a chain of, let's say, clipping and limiting, If you have a gain utility plugin before the chain, you simply lower a couple of dBs before the drop, you're gaining RMS level. So the RMS is more about specific part of the song, not across the song.
Wow, I've been doing that for a long time. I'm glad that you actually recommended that. I was always doing it on the actual output of my song, so the full output would get quieter. But I like your tip on doing it on the input. That makes a lot more sense.
Yeah,
that's a really useful tip.
You get a proportional ratio of essentially compression limiting clipping equal amount, in the entire chain.
It's not just full blast with the output turned down. You get more compression as it increases. That's really great technique. Let's see. Can you explain the concept of crest factor and how it applies to your mix?
So naturally, the crest factor, if you look a meter, I like the BX meter from Brainworks. If you look the meter, you have peak, RMS, and dynamic. Dynamic is dynamic range left into the song. That's the crest factor. Essentially, is the top of the pick, essentially, of your music, and the average level of your music. So the difference between the two is the crest factor. So you have the mountain and you have the valley, and you have, so in the average of that, it's a crest factor. So if you're able, through mixing, to potentially prepare the mix to be a loud master, is better than squeeze and try to push the top of the mountain down during mastering. If you do that, you're going to have 5, 6, 10 dB of limiting, destroy the transient. So how you achieve that? Well, you can go on mymixlab and get a longer answer, but just like a quick few words is this. If you have a strategic approach on your busing system to squeeze dynamics over time in different groups, so your drums has a lot of boomy part of the drums at the bottom, you might want to do a little bit of multi-band compression on your drums and then retain more consistent under like 60 hertz. Then you're reducing less peaks, and then you cannot control that. You do a little bit of clipping on your drums at the end of the chain. Now you automatically start to shave a little bit of the peaks on the drums. You're going to see your dynamic range on your master start to go down, but the music will still breathing. So now don't put a clipper on every bus. You don't want to clip vocal. No. You don't want to clip pads, but you want to clip maybe stabs. So now you do I call low synth, which is my pads. I call high synth, which is my stab and leads. Those parts can be a little bit limiting, a little bit of clipping. Now, when you do this multi-stage of clipping and limiting, when you hit your stereo bus, automatically you reduce your crest factor. Now, this means that just simply put a clip or a limiter and you raise the level, you get more like a clean result on the master. You don't have to go crazy to kind of cut and shave those peaks.
Oh, a question came in about the headphones that you're wearing. What are those, and do you prefer them for mixing and mastering?
Oh, yeah. I love this. Those are the Focal Clear Pro MG, the new model. I like the Pro already. The MG, they're even better. They're quite expensive. They're open back. I learned these headphones over time myself, and I just had a webinar about mixing headphones, and the main thing is with headphones, you really need to learn your instrument. You really need to learn to trust your instrument. So I trusted headphones. What that means is, doesn't mean that you must have a $1,700 headphones to be able to mix. No, you can do a fantastic job on $200, $300 headphones. It just, for me, I think this is a good range. I had the LCDX for a while, way too heavy. After 20 minutes, I was tired. This, it just works because they're pretty light, but they're open back, feel comfortable. I think another key, and then probably is the main one, is learn to mix a low level. Your ears, when you blast music directly here without crossfeeding, you're not getting from the speakers, they're more sensitive. So if you solo kick and bass a snare for 45 minutes, it's not a good idea. So learn to be quick, low level. How I can describe low level to me is if I'm listening 75 decibel on my speakers or 80 as a normal level, and if I put this headphone on and off, on and off, I want to match the level of my speakers
That's a
on
great
my
tip.
headphones.
That's a really great tip. And I've also just recently started experimenting with plugins that emulate different rooms, and I've been getting really interesting sonic results with it. I had never actually used those before, and I just did a video about one on my channel that I posted this morning. I've been using this plugin called Dear VR Mix, and it gives you all these different rooms to choose from and all these different headphones to choose from. Have you ever used one of those virtual room plugins like that?
Yeah, I like Sienna from Acoustic Audio. I put on my system on everywhere on my laptop, and also on the headphone output of my dog. The main thing is, if you Google the name of your headphone frequency response, you'll be scared because say, what? How I can make a decision when you see a dip of like 18 dB of 150 hertz? It's crazy. A lot of headphones, even the expensive one, they have those dips. So what that dip means on your mixing process, that when you actually start to EQ a bass line, and then the specific D note or E note, it's hitting a point where your headphones they have a dip, you're gonna feel 15 dB lower on that note. So now you don't know if it's actually low and you need to push some level there or an EQ curve there, or simply your headphone translation, they're off. So be able to kind of like flat the frequency response of your headphones. Yes, you're going to lose a little bit of the excitement of the headphones. Most of the headphones have a little bit hype on the bottom and the top, but then you're going to trust when you hear it. Ultimately, when you mix music, you don't want to get pleased by your headphones. You want to have like a clear representation of the sound.
That's some great advice. And those plugins that emulate different rooms can be a great tool just to reference in. For example, when you finish a product, a lot of people listen to it through a cell phone or they listen to it through a laptop speaker. So why not add that into the arsenal of listening environments for you to check your song in? They're not always tools for you to listen through all the time. Like just like the people who sell you mono speakers, they're not saying, oh, the mix through this all the time. No, they're saying this is just a tool at the end of the project to get a new set of information. So I think that's also a big misconception about those plugins is that you're supposed to like produce and do your whole mix with those plugins on. No, these are for second opinions, just like you would take your song to a different room to go listen to it.
That's true. There is an interesting fact about older engineer from the old school mentality. They used to have speakers on the desk, maybe the main, the mid-range, the near field, and then they have a little 2 speakers set on the corner somewhere to go there and listen. So when you do that, it's also a way to reset your brain and have more an objective kind of like feedback about the music in a no traditional environment. So this headphone calibration, especially any type of software they have now, like Sienna, but others, you can just listen your music on, let's say, a club environment emulation, or it just to be able to reset your brain for a moment and just get a different, just a different feel for it. Another one is it's crossfeed. Can I explain in a second what crossfeed is? Because there's will be a confusion. So I'm sitting now in my speakers are literally my hands, like this is my speakers now. When I listen my left speakers versus headphones, I'm feeding 70% this here, 30%, even if this speaker will go on this here, about 30%. Same on the other side. Doing this over time, when you're making a mixing decision, you actually use crossfeed, like you're listening on both ears, both speakers, if it makes sense. When you put the headphones on, you are directly 100%. So you're gonna risk to make mixes too mono, too center, because you have a feeling of extreme stereo on your headphones. Now, coming from speakers, if you have a crossfeed setting on your plugin, like Sienna has one, other company, I think Sonarworks has one as well, you kind of feeding on your headphone little bit the left side into the right side. So crossfeed, it's really useful in case you want to transition from mix-on speakers to headphones over time.
Yeah, and these plugins often have an option to check your mix in mono right there too, which is something that normally people would need another setup for. I have some unconventional listening setups that I use. I use my Aventone Mix Cubes, which a lot of people use as a single mono speaker, but I
Right.
have two of them on my desk, and I like listening to them in stereo. And the
Yeah.
reason I like it is because they have no high frequency and no low frequency. It's kind of
Yeah.
just the mids. And that's where
Exactly.
in my mixes, I have the most mud, the most confusion, the most clash. I already know what to do with my low end. I already know what I want to do with my high end, but it's always the mids for me that have the most overlap. So I use those
Right.
speakers to really focus on, one, did I do the mids correctly? And two, are the levels of all the different groups correct? Like, do
Yeah.
I need to turn my vocals group up during the hook and down during the intro? Things like that are what those lo-fi mix cube speakers help me a lot for. Or any secondary listening environment. You can go out into your car, laptop, cell phone, like we said. There's a lot of options for you. Let's see. Another question back to parallel compression. Is it better to do it on your master, or do you parallel compress on an aux and then blend it together on your master?
Well, on the master, if I do hybrid mastering, I use analog gear and plugin. So plugin on the way out, analog gear, come back, a little bit of plugin. I like to do parallel on the analog gear. I have a console in front of me, and I'm able to try different solution and do that a little bit. Be careful. If you do too much parallel compression on the master, you kind of start to lose a little bit of transient because we are bringing low level information up. And so it's fine if you want to get for like more sustain and thickness and overall RMS level, that can work, but don't exaggerate because they're going to start to kind of put some information on top of your transient. So be careful with that. I like to do, for example, parallel compression on the mid. That way I'm not squeezing the side. So the side information is reverb, tail of the piano, tail of the strings, right? Vocal. So if you do too much parallel compression on the side, on mid and side, you risk to make the side information equal the reverb too flat because I keep pushing. And you're losing a little bit of natural decay. So if you do on the mid, now you're getting a little bit more thickness, a little bit more perceived loudness on the mid.
Great tip. Let's see. I always actually do it the opposite way. I've always been doing an aux, but I'm working in the box, so that's probably why it's a different workflow.
Oh, on the box, an aux, yes, aux is the way to go.
Yep.
By the way, yes.
Yeah, that's definitely been my go-to because then I can also pick which instruments I want included in that parallel compression.
And just send them there.
Right.
Exactly.
I call it mix minus sub. I didn't make up that term. I heard somebody else call it that, and I was like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. So my parallel compression bus for my whole mix is actually mix minus sub.
Yep.
And that should be awesome. A very helpful tip. And I like using the UAD distressor plugin or the 1176 if I want something bright.
Right.
Yeah, especially in that blue face mode. Someone asked, when is the next video coming to my mixlab? And we post one every single Monday. Last Monday, I did a Pro Tools template setup guide, which teaches you how to set up channels, auxes, sends, and returns. Before that, I did a master chain in Logic. That was 2 weeks ago. This week's video is the live stream that you're watching right now. And we got Luca coming up next week. So
yeah, exactly.
Monday,
I'm prepping really cool videos, guys. I'm excited. We always here at the studio, I try to kind of highlight things that excite me that I can wait to share. They can be from a song that's kind of cool and I'm getting a good result to techniques. There's one that I'm very excited about. It's like sound design, borderline sound design mix. I was happy about that.
I love that one.
There's another one, guys. Check. There's one which is make songs louder without changing the transient and the dynamics. That's also really good. So I can't wait. I think it's going to be a great end of the year. I have so much content that I can't wait to just share with everyone.
Absolutely. And we also are going to be uploading another free course to the YouTube channel too. So if you're not subscribed, there's also going to be a free course coming on the YouTube channel this week. We always like to pull one out of the archives and post a clip of it for you guys to enjoy. And like I said, if you're not subscribed yet to my mixlab, the Black Friday sale has now begun, where yearly subscriptions are 55% off, only $69.99 for an entire year of access to my mixlab.
That's crazy.
As well
guys, I will say something. Just for support the industry that we are in, we are able to produce this type of content and everything such a like low entry level cost monthly, right? So your support pretty much helps everyone else, and then the industry and us to be able to share it. So
Exactly.
this is awesome.
When we were looking at a lot of the other music schools, we felt like the number one biggest issue was the cost. It was unattainable to like 99% of people. So we said, how could we do away with all the unnecessary expenses, like a big expensive building, a full-time staff? You know, how can we make this an online experience that anybody from anywhere with any device could participate in? So that was where mymixlab was born. And we started in 2020, and it's only 2021 now. So we're still a relatively new school, and you guys are amongst the first wave of our students. So we're very honored and proud to be sharing all these with you in this new format that we really haven't seen anywhere else. So check out mymixlab.com for the best deals of the year on getting access to all of our weekly uploads, future weekly uploads, and the entire back catalog of, we have like 65 videos and 5 or 6 live streams and a few guest tutorials as well. We're getting really high up there in our catalog, so it's never been a better value. Over at mymixlab.com, I'll put a link in the description if it's not already there. But let's get back to the questions. Have you ever used Cubase? Personally, I have not. Actually, I take that back. I made a vocal template in Cubase, but other than that, I haven't used it to make any beats. Do you have any experience in Cubase, Luca?
I was capturing my masters on Cubase. So for a moment, at the peak of me being crazy to try different solutions, I was doing Logic on the way out of the masters, Cubase, a second computer on the way in. Then I settled on Studio One to just do one route and then be able to kind of listen post conversion again. And the purpose of Cubase was I was trying to optimize my latency with analog gear. That was before Studio One. The Studio One kind of like became the DAW that covered the Logic ideas and the Cubase and Pro Tools. So, but I did use for maybe 6 months.
Absolutely. We were talking earlier about using clipping on our instruments groups and transients on our instruments groups, but what about the synths and instruments group itself? I'm not talking about drums or vocals. Is that something that you would put clipping or transients on?
No.
What kind of processing would you use
if the
on
goal,
synths?
so if it's a complex synth that's like maybe attack, but has like a certain sustain and decay, maybe effects or reverbs. If you start to clip too hard, you start to really lose the purpose of having like a synth that is dynamic. So in that case, maybe a little bit of limiting or maybe a little bit of multiband to keep under control certain frequencies like the super high, the super low. Maybe you want to keep that under control. There's another element that we tend to forget. The difference between our ears and the summing, the DAW summing ears. So the DAW summing will equally feel 0 hertz to 100 hertz versus us. We're kind of limited to maybe 25, 30 hertz to like 16, 17K. So if we push a lot of information over 17K, we don't feel it. So we let it go. But the internal limiter clipper will be kind of stressed by those frequencies. So keep those extreme bottom, extreme high frequency under control. You can get a cleaner master just because, again, the fact you're not listening, but the clipper will listen and will create aliasing and phase and other issues.
Someone said, Luca, I've never seen you use OTT. Do you use it at all?
Yeah, and well, I have my own OTT concept, which is the Diamond Transit, not too far. We sometimes, yes, I find OTT to be more, for my style, a production tools than a mixing tool.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah, for that reason, you don't see me use it much.
I use it all the time for exactly that reason. Yeah, because it's a wicked sound design tool, and it could take a basic sound and thrash it into something aggressive and sharp. And as a mixing engineer, taking other people's songs, that's a little bit too drastic of a decision to be making. So I could totally see why Luca probably doesn't use it as much. But for me, I'm taking sounds, I'm saying, I want to freak this sound. So of course I'm going to go to OTT and see what I could do with the highs and the mids or even the lows. I use it on lows all the time too.
Right.
Tell us a little bit more about your Diamond Transient plugin. What makes it more special than your average transient plugin?
Yeah, let me grab this. So that inspired by this thing.
Ah,
Inspired by DBX 3BX. So, and I used the DBX 3BX for a while, but with a lot of limitations. So the goal was like, we want to sample that, have the infinite ratio that 3BX has, but with more options like makeup gain and then solo. So the Diamond Transient essentially has infinite ratio. This means when you hit, it doesn't stop, it keeps going up, but is I don't want to be too complex, but it's a compounder. What is a compounder? It's a compressor and expander at the same time. So based on the setting of the transient setting, you can compress and expand at the same time and make drums and master very musical. You don't feel the snappy transient you're getting from the isotope, transient shaper that you use. It has a more musical round, but it's cool. And also you can control, so attack and release global, and then you have 3 bands. For each band, you can do more expansion or more compression, or expansion compression at the same time. You can even parallel the whole thing. So I'm a huge fan. Well, I was a huge fan of the piece of hardware that it came from, and that we kind of like make a Frankenstein version of that, and it sounds to me fantastic.
someone asked if we'd prefer or recommend Logic or Pro Tools specifically for mixing. And I would say if you're just mixing, Pro Tools, but if you're also a music producer and a composer and an artist, you would probably find Logic to be have way more offerings for your needs. But if you are just taking clients and you're taking their songs and you need to make small adjustments and deliver it back to them, for the most part untouched but just slightly enhanced, maybe Pro Tools will be a better option for you.
Yeah.
That's my breakdown of the two. Someone's asking clipper on guitar group. This kind of goes back to the question we were saying earlier. Not so much clipping on the instruments group, because that will ruin whatever effects and things you have. You're better off processing the guitars individually with distortion and then putting your effects on afterwards, if a distorted guitar effect is what you're going for. But those are instruments that you want to be the most natural and the most dynamic, and clipping is going to make that a little bit challenging. Let's see. Do you have a? Let's see. Let's break it down to top 3, because I'm sure asking you for just one, it would be like underkill. So, what are your top 3 approaches for EQing your master? Things that you always do or would always recommend.
So initially is cleaning and take away or deal with any type of ringing or any type of fixing the master before compression, before limiting, before make the master sound white. So stage number 1, I pick a linear, high quality, linear phase EQ just to control things that I need to fix first. Second stage, I might do a little bit of compression, might be some glue, again, my mid-range techniques compression, and then do another stage of EQing. That is coloring and then lifting. So again, control what I need to control, maybe mistakes from the producer because the room, the song, it was too bright, for example. So I kind of shade, then I do a little bit of compression, and then I use a high quality emulation for EQ and just boost stuff up.
Is that like what your diamond color is?
That's a diamond color EQ is. So, and I go in that case by feeling, versus when I go on the more technical linear phase EQ, I use my eyes a lot. So I want to see what's going on. I want to solo the band. I want to find the ringing point. But then when I'm comfortable, what I was able to fix, maybe even a little bit of mid-side, if I have like out of phase on the side happening on the lower mid-range that is fighting with other instrument, I'll do first. Then the color EQ or any other type of EQ, I pulled a great quality UAD, Pultec emulation, anything you make you feel that without looking at the screen, you just push with the mouse and say, oh, now I feel good. So that's a 2-stage of EQing.
Amazing. And one final question before we wrap it up. Is the bus compression a necessity, or do you often hear tracks where you say this doesn't need compression?
No, it's not a necessity. I think it's a way, if you feel the track is overly dynamic and you want to kind of squeeze the little bit dynamics, if you do at the beginning of the mix, you're going to end up doing less on individual tracks as far as compression. Doesn't mean that every tracks need compression. Sometimes some tracks, they're actually so compressed because choice of sounds and a lot of sample packs and other things that have been chosen, that I might do a little bit of expansion to regain some dynamics. I think that the mid-range compression is my techniques, but it's not a must on every track to compress.
Great. And that's going to be our last question for today. We've been going for exactly 60 minutes now. And to wrap it up, I'd like to leave you with one last reminder that the Black Friday sale at mymixlab has begun. 55% off of annual subscriptions. That's access to all of our weekly courses coming up and all of our weekly courses from the past for just $69.99 over at mymixlab.com. So we would like to thank you guys so much for joining us and asking all of these fantastic questions. It's fun that you guys get to pick our brains, and more importantly, it's fun for us to pick your brains because we get to know what you guys are curious about. We get to know what maybe you would like to know in our next course. So we really appreciate all of your participation and the greetings from around the world here in the live stream. Luca, do you have any final closing words for us before we go?
Well, guys, I want to thank everyone because with mymixlab, we built such a nice community, and who knows, maybe one day we can do an event like go to the NAMM show. By the way, it's happening in June, so who knows, and then maybe get together. So I want to again thanks everyone for the passion and support, and then who knows, have an opportunity in the future we can. Me and you, Reed, and everyone, gets together.
A meet and greet would be amazing. Or if we want to do our own event, we could probably plan some sort of meetup thing or some sort of live seminar once we can figure out how to get everybody together and where.
Let's see.
But,
exactly.
I love that idea. But anyways, we'll catch you guys next time. This rerun will be available on mymixlab.com for subscribers.